Alexander the Great was born in Pella, Macedonia, in 356 BC, to King Philip II and Queen Olympias. He grew up to become one of history's greatest military minds and the founder of the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. At age 12, Alexander showed impressive courage when he tamed the wild horse Bucephalus, an enormous stallion with a furious demeanor. The horse became his battle companion for most of Alexander's life. When Alexander was 13, Philip called on the great philosopher Aristotle to tutor his son. Aristotle sparked and fostered Alexander's interest in literature, science, medicine and philosophy. Alexander was just 16 when he proved his military worth and led a cavalry against the sacred band of Thebes during the Battle of Chaeronea. Alexander put his vigor and bravery on display, and his cavalry decimated the supposedly unbeatable, select army made up entirely of male lovers. In 336 BC, Alexander's father King Philip II was assassinated by his bodyguard Pausanias. Just 20 years old, Alexander claimed the Macedonian throne and killed his rivals before they could challenge his sovereignty. He also quashed rebellions for independence in northern Greece. Once he'd cleaned house, Alexander left to follow in his father's footsteps and continue Macedonia's world domination. Alexander appointed the general Antipater as regent and headed for Persia with his army. They crossed the Hellespont, a narrow strait between the Aegean Sea and the Sea of Marmara, and faced Persian and Greek forces at the Granicus River. Victory went to Alexander and the Macedonians. Alexander then headed south and easily took the city of Sardes. But his army encountered resistance in the cities of Miletus, Mylasa and Halicarnassus. Under siege yet not beaten, Halicarnassus held out long enough for King Darius III, the newest Persian king, to amass a substantial army. From Halicarnassus, Alexander headed north to Gordium, home of the fabled Gordian knot, a group of tightly entwined knots yoked to an ancient wagon. Legend had it whoever unwound the knot would conquer all of Asia. As the story goes, Alexander took on the challenge but was unable to unravel the knot by hand. He took another approach and sliced through the knot with his sword, claiming triumph. In 333 BC, Alexander and his men encountered a massive Persian army led by King Darius III near the town of Issus in southern Turkey. Alexander's forces were greatly outnumbered in men but not in experience or the determination for revenge and to claim Persia's great wealth, much of it plundered. As it became clear Alexander would win the Battle of Issus, Darius fled with what remained of his troops, leaving his wife and family behind. His mother, Sisygambes, was so upset she disowned him and adopted Alexander as her son. By now it was clear that Alexander was a shrewd, ruthless and brilliant military leader. In fact, he never lost a battle in his life. He would build an empire on the back of his motto, "There is nothing impossible to him who will try." Next, Alexander took over the Phoenician cities of Marathus and Aradus. He rejected a plea from Darius for peace and took the towns of Byblos and Sidon. He then laid siege to the heavily fortified island of Tyre in January 332 BC, after the Tyrians refused him entry. But Alexander had no navy to speak of and Tyre was surrounded by water. Alexander instructed his men to build a causeway to reach Tyre. All went well until they came within striking distance of the Tyrians. Again and again, Tyrian forces thwarted Alexander's clever attempts to gain entry, and he realized he needed a strong navy to penetrate their defenses. He amassed a large fleet, finally breached the city's walls in July 332 BC and executed thousands of Tyrians for daring to defy him. Many others were sold into slavery. Alexander faced Darius and his massive troops at Gaugamela in October 331 BC. Following fierce fighting and heavy losses on both sides, Darius fled and was assassinated by his own troops. It said Alexander was sad when he found Darius's body and he gave him a royal burial. Finally rid of Darius, Alexander proclaimed himself king of Persia. But another Persian leader, Bessus, also thought to be Darius's murderer, had also claimed the Persian throne. Alexander couldn't let the claim stand. After relentless pursuit by Alexander, Bessus's troops handed Bessus over to Ptolemy, Alexander's good friend, and he was mutilated and executed. With Bessus out of the way, Alexander had full control of Persia. In 327 BC, Alexander marched on Punjab, India. Some tribes surrendered peacefully, others did not. In 326 BC, Alexander met King Porus of Parava at the Hydaspes River. Porus's army was less experienced than Alexander's, but they had a secret weapon, elephants. Even so, after a fierce battle in a raging thunderstorm, Porus was defeated. By 323 BC, Alexander was head of an enormous empire. After surviving battle after fierce battle, Alexander the Great died in June 323 BC at age 32. Some historians say Alexander died of malaria or other natural causes, others believe he was poisoned. Either way, he never named a successor. His death, and the bloody infighting for control that happened afterwards, unraveled the empire he'd fought so hard to create.